Marvel has given us 2 cameos of Fantastic Four members who have died in a very similar way. Chris Evans showed up as the Human Torch in Deadpool and Wolverine, and John Krasinski played Reed Richards in Doctor Strange 2. Everybody loved seeing Chris Evans again, and hated the treatment Krasinski received as a member of the Illuminati. But why? The 2 characters have minimal supporting roles and are brutally killed by the female villain of the movie without being able to do anything to defend themselves, and without using their powers in a cool way before dying. But Johnny's death was funny, and people liked it, while Reed Richards' death was an insult and a waste of the character. Some people are still mad about how John Krasinski's character was killed off.
Unacceptable.
There are 4 reasons that explain this double standard. First reason. Casting John Krasinski as Reed Richards wasn't random. Fans had been saying for years that he would be perfect to play Mr. Fantastic in live action, because Krasinski looks just like the character from the comics. In fact, several comic book artists took inspiration from Krasinski for more recent versions of the character, and the actor had mentioned that he would love to play Reed, because he's a Marvel fan.
He's perfect. He is.
According to Michael Waldron, who wrote Doctor Strange 2, they chose Krasinski for this cameo because they had heard the fans' requests and wanted to give us what we wanted. But that didn't go so well. This is an example of bad fan service, because you can't just bring in the character everyone wants to see for a 2-second scene and then kill him. It's like if we saw Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine, and then they killed him off in a ridiculous way. People would have burned the theater to the ground, because Daniel is one of the fan favorites to be the new Wolverine.
Makes me really, really angry.
Many expected this to be the introduction of the MCU's Fantastic Four, and that John Krasinski's Reed Richards would travel to Universe 616 at the end of Doctor Strange 2 to become part of the main continuity. But no, it was just a 2-minute cameo that crushed expectations in the worst way possible. If they had cast a different actor, no one would have complained. But fans wanted this actor to be Reed Richards in the future. Chris Evans' cameo was different. No one even considered that Chris Evans would be the Human Torch in Universe 616, because he had already played that character in another universe. He's too old to play Johnny, and by the time we saw this cameo, Marvel had already announced the new Fantastic Four. The effect was different from Krasinski's death, because Johnny's death is irrelevant to the rest of the MCU. No one expected or wanted this version of the Human Torch to have a major role in Universe 616. No one was asking for him to appear in Secret Wars as part of a multiversal Avengers team, because this character isn't as beloved as Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man or Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
I love him.
It would have been different if Chris Evans had returned as Captain America, and they killed him off in this way, making fun of the character. People would have screamed from the top of their lungs, even if this version of Steve was a variant from another universe that just happened to have the same face as Chris Evans. Steve Rogers was one of the most important characters in the Infinity Saga, and he had the perfect ending, so if he comes back, they need to do him justice so people don't get mad. But if we see a variant from the Fox universe, they can do whatever they want with him, because it's not like those movies were that good, and Johnny wasn't even the protagonist.
Really?
Want to know who was the main character in those movies? Reed Richards. Second reason. John Krasinski was the most anticipated cameo in Doctor Strange 2. I know some might say that the most important cameo was Patrick Stewart as Professor X, because we already knew him, and he was even accompanied by the music from the animated show. But Marvel showed that cameo in the trailers to sell tickets, like they did with Laura in the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine. Since fans already knew these cameos were going to appear, they didn't go crazy in the theater, because this wasn't a surprise. I love seeing Patrick Stewart again, especially with the 90s look, but I didn't clap my hands until they bled, because I already knew he was going to show up. The real surprise was John Krasinski, but they killed him without letting him do anything significant.
Disappointed!
It was obvious that people were going to be left with a bad taste in their mouths, because the character they were most excited to see died 2 minutes after appearing, and it's not like the other cameos had much more weight. All the Illuminati died just as quickly as Krasinski, except for Mordo, but it seems like no one cares about Mordo. Many people were angry because they felt Marvel took away their chance to see Krasinski as Reed Richards in the future, and they were right. Pedro Pascal is going to play Reed Richards going forward, not John Krasinski. Chris Evans' cameo didn't follow the same rules. Sure, his appearance was also a surprise. There had been rumors for months, but most insiders get things wrong half the time, and Marvel only included one nod to the Fantastic Four in the trailers, the Fantastic Car, but it could have just stayed as a nod and nothing else. We also saw the truck Moon Knight drove in his series, and Oscar Isaac didn't make a cameo. I expected Deadpool to comment that Disney needed to announce the second season as soon as possible, but that didn't happen. But Chris Evans' cameo wasn't the most important one. The cameos people liked the most were Henry Henry Cavill as Wolverine, the return of Wesley Snipes' Blade, and Channing Tatum as Gambit. Those are the cameos people remembered, not Johnny's death at Cassandra's hands. If the members of the Resistance hadn't appeared and had an epic battle against Cassandra's mutants, the reception of Johnny's cameo would have been different, because that would have been the only important cameo in the entire movie. I'm sure that if the Resistance hadn't appeared, everyone would have gone on Twitter to say, Marvel ruined the Human Torch. Exactly what happened in Doctor Strange after Reed's death.
Deja vu, right?
Third reason. Even though both movies are superhero films where the multiverse plays a key part, the tone of the two movies is radically different. Doctor Strange 2 took itself seriously. It has a campy touch and some horror elements, because it's a classic Sam Raimi movie. It has a few jokes here and there to break the tension, like Bruce Campbell hitting himself in a nod to Evil Dead, or Wong saying he doesn't want to know what's going on when he sees Strange as a zombie. But it's not a comedy or a parody. That means we take the death seriously, and we can't justify the anticlimactic moments by saying this is just a comedy.
I don't understand.
There's no way to justify the smartest man alive telling Wanda about Black Bolt's powers. You also can't justify him trying to attack the witch head on, knowing how powerful she is, because there was no way he would survive. This is a serious story, so we have to analyze it seriously. But Krasinski's death ends up being silly. It only serves to show Wanda's power level and make us buy her as a villain, but at the cost of destroying Reed. Literally. The difference with Deadpool and Wolverine is that that movie is a comedy. It's practically a spoof movie, a film that makes fun of the genre, full of references to superhero movies and allowed to break any convention.
Prove it.
They sold us the fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth as the most anticipated showdown of all time since the trailers. Deadpool prepares us to see the best fight in MCU history, but Logan kills Sabretooth with one blow. It should have been a super disappointing moment, but no one complained, because this is a comedy, and the scene is used to tell a joke. This is key. The entire cameo of Chris Evans is a joke. At first, we think it's Captain America, and Deadpool is disappointed when he realizes it's the Human Torch. The fight with Pyro should have been an epic moment, because comic book Johnny should have been able to defeat Pyro easily, but the mutant absorbs the fire without any difficulty. Johnny falls from the sky and should have died from this fall, but he survives, because this is a parody of the superhero genre that isn't taking itself seriously. You don't need to overthink this scene, because its goal is to tell a joke that makes you laugh. As long as that works, the scene works.
Is that clear?
The same thing happens with Johnny's death. The whole context is funny. Deadpool tells Cassandra that Johnny insulted her in every imaginable way, but Johnny denies it to avoid angering Cassandra. Tired of listening to his banter, Cassandra kills Johnny by removing all the skin from his body. This death is unexpected and shocking, because no one expected Johnny to die like that, but it's also funny. Johnny dies literally for being rude, and because Deadpool wanted to distract the villain. In any other movie, this would be seen as a bad thing. It should be an anticlimactic moment, but it works here because of the movie's tone, which is meant to be funny. Even the post-credits scene where Johnny appears is funny. We hear him insulting Cassandra, doing everything MCU Captain America wouldn't do.
Language.
But Krasinski's appearance was serious. Fourth reason. We can't analyze these two scenes out of context, pretending they are two TikTok videos we randomly saw in our feed. These two cameos are part of two movies that had a very different reception. Deadpool and Wolverine is one of Marvel's most well-received projects in recent years, and Doctor Strange 2 just wasn't that good. Don't get me wrong, I like that movie overall. Wanda works as a villain, Strange's development is good, the fights are well-directed, Sam Raimi uses magic in a very original way, and the whole movie has good pacing. I assure you that if you watch it now without the expectations you had before its release, you'll enjoy it much more than you did when it came out. But it didn't live up to the expectations. We were still savoring No Way Home and the three Spider-Men together. A bunch of insiders made up stories that we'd even see Donald the Duck in Doctor Strange 2, and the movie was called Multiverse of Madness. It was logical to expect a lot, but in the end, it was just a story about Strange and Wanda, nothing more.
That's it?
Add to that how they treated Krasinski, and that's it. There's no way to save that cameo, because the rest of the movie didn't meet expectations either. Deadpool and Wolverine works better. It has more plot holes than Multiverse of Madness, but as an overall experience, it's much more satisfying. It has better fights, better special effects, and it's more emotional. As Deadpool said in the trailers, they gave us what we wanted to see. No wonder many people say Deadpool and Wolverine is what Doctor Strange 2 should have been. And since the movie works better, we overlook some things. I assure you that if the movie had been mediocre and they had killed Johnny in this way, a bunch of people would have been so mad, but no one cares because the overall experience was good.
That's the difference.
But that doesn't mean Deadpool and Wolverine was safe from fan expectations. This is a problem for all multiverse stories, a problem this movie also has to deal with. We explain why in this video over here.
Well, we know I'm gonna watch it.